What's going on, guys? It's me, Zachary Steele, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This one I'm going to go over this week's waivers after week 2, getting ahead of week 3. I'll just go over a couple of players at each position, sort of explain to you why I think they're worth an ad and when I think they're worth, or why, the scenario in which I think they'd be worth adding. So yeah, let's get started. So for starters at quarterback, my number one waiver wire ad this week would be Teddy Bridgewater. He's actually looked really good. Granted, it's been against the Giants and the Jaguars, so that necessarily doesn't necessarily mean very much. But the fact of the matter is, Teddy Bridgewater is a professional quarterback. He's a guy that you can count on to really not screw you. Is basically all I'm saying here is that Teddy Bridgewater is a guy you can pick up and expect him to be a top 20 quarterback each week, and he'll be okay. And there's upside and plus matchup. So this week he gets the Jets. I'd expect him to have a pretty promising performance. Broncos have actually really struggled to run the ball this season, so they've had to do most of their damage through the air. Cortland Sutton looked awesome last week, and it was nice to see Tim Patrick and Noah Fant get involved as well. So Teddy Bridgewater's got enough weapons to succeed, and I'd expect him to continue rolling this week against the Jets. The next guy I'd be looking to add is Derek Carr. Simply said, Derek Carr has been amazing to start the season. Through 2 weeks, he's got almost 800 passing yards against the Ravens and the Steelers, who are perennially good defenses. And he's doing it with weapons that seem to really be coming together. We all know who Darren Waller is, but Henry Ruggs had a huge game this week. We saw Bryan Edwards flash in week 1. Hunter Renfrow is a nice, reliable option, and he did it without Josh Jacobs this week. I don't know that the Raiders are going to be able to run the ball very effectively this season, so I think Derek Carr is going to have to be the thing that makes that offense move. Their defense is middle of the pack, so they're going to have to put points on the board each week, and Derek Carr is proving capable. I still don't think he's necessarily a top 10 quarterback in fantasy the rest of the season, but I do think Derek Carr will be a guy you can start in good matchups and will be startable. I'd be happy to have him on the roster as a backup or a streaming option. Then I've got Kirk Cousins here. Kirk Cousins has been putting up pretty quality fantasy performances so far this season, and he gets to play the Seattle Seahawks, who couldn't hold the Titans down at all this last week. I'm a Seahawks fan, trust me. I watched, it sucked. Our cornerbacks are a mess, and we're probably going to get torn apart by Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson this week, along with KJ Osborne, who I'll touch on later. Kirk Cousins, again, he's a quality streaming option plus matchups. The Vikings defense is horrible, and pretty much every game they get into is going to be a shootout. Kirk Cousins is a guy I'd be happy to start in a pinch. And lastly, I've got Daniel Jones here. Daniel Jones is making this list just because of what we've seen him do on the ground lately. He had 95 rushing yards this last week. He's proven to be a pretty capable runner when they give him the opportunity to do so. And he actually didn't look horrible on Thursday. He wasn't good. He never really is, but he wasn't horrible either. He gets to play the Falcons this week and pretty much allow anyone to put up fantasy points. So Daniel Jones is worth a look at streaming this week. So moving on to quarterback, number one guy I'd be looking at here is Sony Michel. We don't know quite yet the extent of the Darrell Henderson injury, so if comes out clean that Darrell Henderson's completely fine, he would take a notch down here, but I still think Sony Michel's a guy that needs to be rostered in all leagues. Darrell Henderson's looked really awesome so far this season, but the Rams are an offense they're going to put up a lot of points, and in any scenario where Sony Michel gets a quality workload, he's got to be rostered, and he'll put up pretty quality fantasy outings for you. So I'd be looking to add Sony Michel. James White is back this season, it seems. He had, I want to say, 6 receptions for about 50 yards and added on a rushing score this week. That's about the ceiling you're going to get out of him, but I think the 6 receptions for 50 yards are something you'll see relatively consistently. So I think he's going to be a nice flex option to high-end RB3 option. He's just a nice, safe asset to have on your roster and somebody you can put in a pinch, and he's not going to hurt you. He'd be nice to have on the bench. Cordarrelle Patterson is another guy I'm looking to add this week. Falcons really look to be using him, getting the ball in his hands. He's actually a really talented player in general. He does a lot with the ball in his hands in open space. And he's looked okay as a running back when he's been given opportunities in his career. I personally still think Mike Davis is the clear starter there, but I don't think that it's necessarily a workhorse role at all. Patterson's going to get enough touches to be fantasy relevant, and he's a guy that you can definitely play in your flex. Another guy I'm talking about here is Kenneth Gainwell. He's really challenging Miles Sanders for touches in the Philadelphia backfield, and he's doing well when he gets those touches. Needs to be rostered in all the leagues because he's got flex value without anything happening to Sanders. And if Sanders were to go down, kind of game would be in locked in starter week in and week out. And then lastly, one deeper league option here is Jeff Wilson. Obviously, we saw all 3 of the 49ers running backs suffer injuries in the 4th quarter this last Sunday. Jeff Wilson's currently on IR, but we'll be back at some point this season. Don't quote me on it, but I believe the timetable is around week 6. He's the most established runner in that offense right now. And with the way all those running backs are dropping like flies, Jeff Wilson has a real shot to come in and be a starter when that happens. So Jeff Wilson's worth adding, especially in links where you have an IR slot and you can pick him up and just put him there and hold him and see what happens, because he's definitely got very real upside when that happens. So at wide receiver, I'll bring up Tim Patrick again. He was probably added last week after the Jerry Jeudy injury, but in case he wasn't, Tim Patrick looked pretty good again this last week. He did score a touchdown. Obviously, Courtland Sutton is the #1 wide receiver in that offense, but Tim Patrick actually ran one more route than Courtland Sutton this last week. But regardless, Tim Patrick is the clear #2 receiver in this offense. I think it's an offense that's going to have to score a decent amount, and Teddy Bridgewater is making it look like they're going to be able to do that. So Tim Patrick's guy, I think you can pretty happily start as your flex option, and he's usable there. Another guy I'm really excited about is Rondale Moore. He really had his coming out party this last week, putting up 7 for 130 and a touchdown, I believe. And he just looked really good. He's really good with the ball in his hands in open space, and he obviously scored on a coverage breakdown. But that's something that can happen in that offense. We all know the Cardinals offense is going to be one that puts up a lot of points, and Rondale Moore does have a very real path to a lot of targets in this offense. In my opinion, he is the clear #2, at least #3, with AJ Green being the #4 option in this offense. And it certainly seems like it's an offense that can sustain several receivers. Rondale Moore is a guy that manufacturing touches for with screen passes and stuff close to the line of scrimmage. I think it gives him a pretty safe floor. And then we all saw what his upside was this last week. So I would definitely be looking to add Rondale Moore if he's not already rostered. Another guy I'd be looking to add is KJ Osborne. He's really established himself as the clear #3 wide receiver in Minnesota. With the loss of Irv Smith this season, they were pretty much looking for a third receiving option in this offense. I think they found it in KJ Osborne. I don't think Osborne's going to be a locked-in starter at all the rest of the season, but with as bad as the Vikings defense is, there's definitely upside, and they'll have to be scoring a lot this season. And KJ Osborne's proven to be a pretty quality asset so far for them. He's not worth starting this week, even in a plus matchup, but he's certainly someone I want to add and look and see another week or two and see what happens with him. Another guy I'll talk about here is Jamison Crowder. I know he hasn't played yet this season, but he actually had a really quality season last season, and Zach Wilson's currently thrown 30% of his targets to the slot receiver. Braxton Berrios is even having a quality season so far. I think a lot of those are going to go to Jamison Crowder once he comes back, and I think he's going to have flex appeal when he's back in the lineup. So definitely just take a look and see if Crowder's owned in your league. Another guy I'd be looking to add is Zach Pascal. Obviously, the Carson Wentz injury does notch Zach Pascal down a little bit, but Zach Pascal is a quality receiver. He's been involved in the offense both the last 2 weeks. Obviously, Michael Pittman does seem to be the clear #1 there, but Zach Pascal is a guy that you can play in your flex if you need to, and he's got upside. He can score a touchdown in a given week, and I'm not too uncomfortable playing Zach. And then lastly, I'll talk about is Quintez Cephus, wide receiver for the Lions. I do think that when it's all said and done this season, Quintez Cephus will be the #1 wide receiver in Detroit. This Monday, he scored a touchdown and really was the only receiver that stood out to me. He almost made another insane one-handed catch that would have given him a 2-touchdown day, and that would have really sort of shifted the narrative about Quintez Cephus this Monday. But there's definitely room for one of these receivers to step up and be really fantasy viable this season. I do think Quintez Cephus will be that guy. I'm not looking to start him immediately upon picking him up. He's a guy I'd be really happy about having on my bench, especially in deeper leagues. And then lastly, the tight end position. We all know the tight end position is pretty bad, but there are 3 guys I think you can look to add. #1 being Jack Doyle. I believe he had 13 fantasy points this last week, despite not scoring a touchdown. And anytime you get a tight end putting up a quality outing without a touchdown, it's worth at least taking a look. Jack Doyle has been a really clear safety net for the Indianapolis Colts for the majority of his career. And if Jacob Eason has to start for them, I think they're going to look to use Jack Doyle even more. It's just a nice security blanket. Doyle's a pretty talented player. This is an offense that's going to need to throw the ball a decent amount. Obviously, they're going to try, or they should try and run the ball behind Jonathan Taylor, but they don't seem to be necessary. They're still finding their identity in that offense. I didn't know be enough work for Jack Doyle to be a decent streaming option at tight end. Another guy I'm pretty excited about is Pat Freiermuth. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. He's pretty clearly established himself as the #1 tight end in Pittsburgh. Early on, I believe he had 4 catches for 36 yards this last week. Eric Ebron had 0 for 0. I don't think this is an offense that I really want to be too dependent on, especially the way Big Ben's playing, but especially if Deontay Johnson misses games, it's going to be a decent amount of targets that open up for these tight ends. And I think Freiermuth could be a guy that benefits from that. I don't think that Steelers offense will be this bad all season, so I do think they'll positively regress. And like I said, the tight end position is horrible. If you're hurting into that position, I would not blame you at all for taking a flyer on Pat Freiermuth. And lastly, Jared Cook. He's pretty clearly established himself as the #4 receiving option behind Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler. He had a touchdown get hauled back this past week, and if he'd scored that touchdown, the narrative around him would be really different. Like I said, the tight end position sucks. He's at least getting consistent targets, so he's worth it being rostered in most leagues. So with that, that'll do it for that video. If there were any guys I talked about that you disagree with being ads, let me know. Anybody I didn't touch on, feel free to comment and I'll let you know what I think about them. If you're torn on any decisions in terms of who you think you should pick up any of these guys, let me know. I can help you make that decision. Really love interacting with you guys when I get the chance to. So feel free to hit me up on Twitter as well. It's @RealSteelFFB. I'll link that in the description as well. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and click subscribe and click the little notification bell so you can see when I put out videos. Have a probably outrageous goal of reaching 500 subscribers by the end of the season. We'll see if that happens. It probably won't, but you can shoot for the stars, right? So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video, taking the time out of your day, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.